just realized I have to come out to my parents before posting this video, but it was damn time. So today you're gonna have to follow me a little bit from point A to point B. This video is sort of random, sort of very important because it discusses a theme that is very central to bisexuality, and that's sadly by erasure. So the way I will discuss this topic relating to Thai dramas will be through two case studies. Firstly, the character of Tae from I Told Sunset About You, to see by erasure inside of the BL fandom, and secondly, the case of Peach from The Player, to see erasure acknowledged and challenged inside of a Thai drama. Let's go. Tae. So, this all started with a comment I received on my I Promised You the Moon video, and frankly that comment has stayed with me ever since. I randomly think about it during my day. It sometimes keeps me up at night. Because while the commenter does believe that bisexuality exists, which is already a win in itself I guess, their comment is at the very least clumsy. It says the following. I have a quibble though. Saying Tae is bi because of that girl doesn't do the character or bisexuals any favors. A lot of boys that ultimately end up gay try dating girls that one girl they can be straight for, or desperately try to find that one. It could be cultural, religious, trying to keep acceptance of friends and family, whatever. It's just a desperate attempt to be what they're not. It's why so many initially come out as bi first before accepting they're gay, and why bisexuality is frequently seen as nothing more than not gay yet. There are bi characters in BLs. Frame from Make It Right and Alex from Until We Meet Again come to mind, and characters that never say it but wouldn't be worth fighting over. Poon and No from Lovesick, Fuse from Make It Right, for example. But dating a girl they don't seem to be into isn't an indicator. And the commenter does make the point that bisexuality is very often seen as an in-between state, before you come out as gay if you're a man, or as straight if you're a woman, because obviously relationships that don't center men cannot exist, right? But I'm gonna have to be honest and say that I took this comment personally, because Tae is one of my favorite bisexual characters ever. And this comment clearly ignores the very clear context clues that make Tae such an obvious bisexual character. And also saying that him being bi isn't doing him any favor is badly worded at best. Now here's the thing, I am well aware of the trope of the closeted gay man tries to date a woman before eventually finding himself, as it was for many years the only trope that gay men could find themselves in, before falling in love with a man, having an affair, and then finally accepting themselves. Trust me, I've watched enough British soap operas to know that trope by heart. Hell, even very recently, Love Victor had a very similar trope, which, to be completely transparent, I did believe Victor to be bisexual for most of season 1, and was pretty surprised that he wasn't, but oh well.
Mom, Dad, I'm gay.
I'm absolutely not saying that these stories are not worth telling and never happen in real life. I'm just saying that it's a little surprising how in the dozens and dozens of characters that have gone through the same trope, only one character, coincidentally my favorite bisexual character of all time, Robert Sugden from Emmerdale, was bisexual. When a man who will end up in a long committed relationship with another man has a history of dating women prior to him, he almost always ends up identifying as gay. And it's true that men who love men are most likely to identify as gay than bisexual, whereas women who love women are more likely to identify as bisexual than lesbians. But to tell me that there is only one character in all of soap operas that used to date women and ended up with a man to be bisexual, I'm sorry, I'm calling bullshit on that. This reminds me of one of my favorite soap operas love story, John Paul and Greg on Hollyoaks. John Paul is gay and falls in love with his straight best friend Craig. There's a whole lot of shenanigans, and Greg is dating John Paul's best friend Katie, but after a little while they begin an affair, and gosh, I fucking love these two. Like, Greg is toxic as all hell, because hello, soap opera! But there are moments of softness and like queer love that I just adore between these two. And for me the whole time Greg is bisexual, right? He's been in love with women before, now he loves a man. That's for me the textbook definition of being bisexual. But nope, after Greg has left the show, we have a scene of his mother calling him gay. And frankly, my jaw fucking dropped because why? And this is ultimately why I'm talking about this, because it clearly showed that being gay is the default for any non-straight person. There is this black and white understanding of sexuality that, yes, thankfully has started being challenged in the recent years, but still means that gay is the default for any non-straight characters. Bisexuals represent the biggest community inside of the LGBTQ+ community, yet the representation we get in media does not reflect that. So now you might understand why I feel a little defensive when someone comes to tell me that Tae, who is so clearly bisexual, is not. Because I personally find him one of the most undeniable bisexual characters in Thai dramas. So I'm a little confused when I see another comment under my video telling me that they thought that Tae was gay in the first season and then got confused when he dated a woman in I Promise You the Moon. Or another comment that tells me that half the viewers have forgotten that he's bi anyway. Because I find myself asking, did we watch the same show? So here we are, I'm gonna have to defend Tae's sexuality. Fun! Tae is introduced as someone who tries really hard to have his shit together. And it's shown as a big reason as to why he's closeted. He works hard in school, succeeds in auditions, is pretty popular, and yes, is talking to a girl. We're introduced to Tarn through Tae's eyes, who clearly likes her. You can see the chemistry between them, there's no denying that Tae genuinely likes her, especially since he says himself that he's been hitting on her for a long time. But then Tae becomes friends with OL again, and his love for OL hits him like a ton of bricks, clearly undermining his love for Tarn. And I could maybe sort of see why people would think that Tae is gay in certain instances. For example, the fact that he doesn't seem too happy to kiss Tarn, though that is very simply explained by the fact that he already has feelings for OL at that time, or that he clearly uses her to try and stay straight after he starts rejecting OL. But here's the thing, and it might blow your mind, but bisexuals can be closeted and still use opposite sex relationships to hide their attraction to the same sex. Like, that is not a unique gay experience. I think what a lot of people might not understand is that being bisexual is having the same fear than gay people to be rejected by our heteronormative society, while also being scared of being rejected by the gay community for not being gay enough. So Tae's struggle to me, coincidentally a few months before I finally came out to myself, ranks so deeply relatable and bisexual to me. Tae could be in a straight relationship if he wanted, but his heart already belongs to OL, so he has to fight against that, because he wants to stay closeted. The internalized homophobia that we find in gay characters can also very well happen in bisexual characters, who struggle to come to terms with that part of themselves. Tae's coming out talk with his brother also rang very true to me as well, because it clearly shows that Tae is scared of the fact that he's attracted to men on top of women. The sentence
เกิดมาแต่คิดว่าชอบได้แต่ผู้หญิง
says it all. Only like women. That means he likes women. He only thought he could love women until that point, so the thought that he could also fall for men scares him. And to make it even more crystal clear in the sequel I Promise You the Moon, we have Tae dating his female co-star before getting back together with OL.
บอกมาเถอะก็คงเป็นจริง
At that point, the dude isn't closeted to all the people who matter anymore. He has no reason to date a woman if he's not attracted to her. And for me, the most important piece of evidence is especially his talk with Tarn at the end of I Thought Sunset About You. He clearly says,
ที่กูบอกกูชอบมึงอะกูชอบมึงจริงชอบมึงตลอด2 ปีที่จีบมึงมา
and I think it's time we take characters' own words into account and stop choosing to remember the parts we like and forget the others. Tae being bisexual is not only made clear by the show over and over again, but it would also be nice to remember that the fact that he's bisexual literally takes nothing away from the show, the character, or the relationship. I completely understand relating to a character's journey and making it conflate with our own. Hell, I do that all the time. But firstly, you can absolutely relate to a character's journey to find their own bisexuality if you're gay. just like there are gay characters that I relate deeply to as a bisexual woman. And secondly, and most importantly, you relating to them does not erase the actual subtext and text of the show. For example, Pupa and Tian from 1,000 Stars, clearly two characters who are coded as gay without making it super clear and blatant. Pupa rejects a woman.
บอกเลยว่าไม่ใช่สเปคของเพื่อนพี่
So I think it's pretty clear he doesn't like women, but Tian never talks about not liking women. His self-discovery is about him liking men. But when we look at the show, especially his coming out discussion to his best friend Toon, it's clear to me that Tian is a gay man who has never experienced attraction like he did with Pupa. So since it's not made crystal clear, I could assume that Tian is bisexual. But I don't, because I look at the clues that the show gives me. And in that particular case, I am fairly sure that Tian is a gay character. Because at the end of the day, most BL characters do not have labels. And most of the time they don't even get to say I like men or I like both. So it's up to each individual to read into their sexuality as they will. And obviously an individual's own sexuality and biases shows up in that. A lot of BL characters only date women before finding that one guy that they end up with and are meant to spend the rest of their lives with. Punenno in Lovesick from that initial comment, Sarawat and Tyne in Together, Saifa and Zone in Why Are You, and so many others. This lack of label is not a problem in of itself, but I do think it leads to a lot of bi erasure. I've seen bi characters be assumed both gay or straight just because they don't have a really loud moment of them proclaiming their sexuality. On the opposite end, characters are immediately assumed to be gay if they're seen liking one man and have feminine qualities, such as being short, soft-spoken, and liking girly things. But bisexual characters who do not fit in a box, who do not fit in the black and white gay or straight binary, can often be seen as confusing and very often confuse themselves. And that's what leads us to the second part of this video, pitch from the player. So the take comment that sparked the first half of this video came from me talking about the bisexuals are cheaters trope in I Promise You the Moon, that I found very harmful. But here's the thing, I actually have no issue with bisexual characters cheating, as long as it's not shown as a specifically bisexual trait. If the only character who cheats in the whole show is bisexual, I will have more difficulty to swallow it. Just like the fact that both bisexual characters in I Promise You the Moon are seen as manipulators and unfaithful. But in the case of the player, Peach cheating on Eve was actually one of the tamest things ever. Peach is one of the least fucked up characters in that show. Another cheating bisexual character that I love, once again, is Robert in Emmerdale, who is not only a cheater, but a serial one at that. I do have my issues with the second cheating storyline he was a part of, but oh well. I will talk about Robert down the line though. But a cheating character that I really appreciated as well is Peach from the player. Not only was he fully advertised as openly bisexual since the very first mock trailer, but the show actually pulled through with him. I'm not saying I love everything about the writing of Peach's story or even the whole show in general. In fact, I really wasn't a fan of the ending, but I do think the topic of bisexuality, biphobia and bi-erasure were really tackled super well in that show. So Peach is introduced as the son of a politician with an extremely controlling mother, and he's dating a very rich and influential woman named Eve. When we meet him, we discover that he's cheating on Eve with his ex-boyfriend Matt, whom he met in Germany as students, and clearly can't stay away from. We also see him having sex with Giwi, whom he's clearly attracted to long before Eve or Matt. In that first scene with Matt though, they are already discussing Peach's sexuality. Matt jokes that he made Peach discover that he liked men, and Peach replies that he would have probably fell in love for another man anyway, challenging the idea that he's straight but only gay for one man.
ถึงกูไม่เจอมึงเนี่ยก็อาจจะมีผู้ชายคนอื่นที่เข้ามาทำให้กูรู้สึกดีก็ได้
In the next scene with Matt, which was very pathetically funny in my eyes, we have firstly Matt acknowledging that Peach is bisexual and saying he accepts it.
กูเข้าใจนะว่ามึงเป็นไบ
But once he gets upset that Peach is with Eve, he says that Peach is in denial because he's gay.
มึงไม่ใช่ไบแต่มึงเป็นเกย์
That for me felt really realistic because growing up I always heard that while gay people weren't accepted by straight people, bi people weren't accepted by both straight and gay people. And it took me a long time to unpack, but I now know that it's one of the reasons that I came out pretty late at 21 years old. It's extremely scary to think that you're gonna be rejected by both sides, and clearly that didn't make me want to even question being bisexual in the first place. Fortunately, mentalities are evolving and more gay people are not only accepting but also encouraging of bisexual people. But that doesn't mean that discrimination has been eliminated completely. In fact, many gay and bi couples coexist despite the denial of the bisexuality of one of its members. And for me, I found it incredibly realistic that Matt, a gay character, would attack Peach's sexuality right after having affirmed it. Knowing that the director of the player is himself a gay man, I applaud him for his decision to question his own community about their biphobia. And I also love Peach's response to Matt.
คนที่จะบอกว่ากูเพศอะไร กูชอบใคร คือตัวกูเท่านั้น คนอื่นไม่มีสิทธิ์
And this sentence is incredibly important and powerful. It for me really touched on the idea that others often think that they know your own sexuality better than you do, especially when once again it doesn't fit in the binary of gay or straight. The scene that for me completes that one pretty well is the scene between Eve and her dad, who used to be married to her mother before she passed away and is now dating a man. From the first scene he appears in, Eve's dad is presented as gay.
ของเราเนี่ยเรารู้สึกยังไงหลังจากคุณแม่ท่านเสียไปคุณพ่อก็เปิดตัวว่าเป็นเกย์แล้วก็พาแฟนผู้ชายเข้าบ้าน
He's in a same-sex couple after all. That means he's gay, right? Well, when Eve goes to talk with her dad, right after Peach has come out to her, which we'll talk about in a minute, and she asks him if he identifies as bisexual, he says yes because he genuinely loved Eve's mom.
คือจริงๆพ่อก็คิดว่าพ่อเป็นไบนะเพราะว่าพ่อชอบทั้งผู้ชายแล้วก็ผู้หญิง
But because he's in a same-sex couple, he's only seen as gay. If he was in an opposite-sex couple, he'd be seen as straight. Once again, there's no room for gray or any other color in a black and white way of thinking. I also really enjoyed this talk between Eve and her dad because on top of it being really rare to have a scene where a parents open up about their sexuality to their child on TV, it being mostly the opposite, they also tackle right away the cliche that all bisexuals cheat.
แล้วคนจะนอกใจอ่ะมันไม่เกี่ยวกับเรื่องเพศหรอก
Once again, the show makes super pertinent points. And I really like that this particular dialogue is clearly included to prevent any biphobia from the viewer who sees Peach being a cheater and thinks that all bisexuals are like that. It's the first time I see that role being challenged on TV, which is not that surprising coming from the player because, well, they already acknowledged bisexuality, which was already a huge step in itself. But it's not surprising when the director Jojo Tishakorn was the first one to write a polyamorous relationship, other bisexual characters, an openly lesbian character in Friendzone 2, an asexual character. Like the dude is for me the type queer director that doesn't only stop at gay and bi men, but also fights to include other characters, trans characters by the way. I mean, the only trans character I've ever seen get a love story was May in Three Will Be Free. Like at the end of the day, he's revolutionary, I love that man, even though his shows aren't like the best, but his inclusion and representation of LGBTQ plus characters is by far the best. But anyways, I really like the inclusion of another bisexual figure as Eve's dad, who is not a cheater and very much a family man, to truly show that, and I know it's surprising, bisexual people come with all different types of personalities and stories. Groundbreaking, I know. And then we have probably my favorite bisexual scene of the show, which is Peach coming out to Eve. I felt every second of that scene in my soul. Peach, who has been dating Eve for years, finally dares to tell her that Matt is his ex-boyfriend and that he's bisexual.
ใช่แต่พิทก็ชอบผู้หญิงด้วยนะคือพิทเป็นไบอะ
That scene is even more impactful knowing that Peach is extremely closeted to his mom and dad. His mom not wanting him to be seen as gay so as not to ruin his reputation and political career, while his dad is the classic macho man who sees women as objects. Both of them have created an extremely stressful and unwelcoming environment for Peach. And the only person who's known about his truth was Matt until his coming out to Eve. And I frankly don't have much to add about that scene because it truly showcased how hard it can be for someone in a relationship relationship to open up about that side of themselves. Though sadly this leads us to the last scene of the player that I want to discuss today, which is that when Eve breaks up with Peach because she's being blackmailed into it by Matt, you can see Peach's insecurities completely take over.
เพราะพี่เป็นใบเหรอ
Even though Eve denies breaking up with him because of his bisexuality, because once again it has absolutely nothing to do with it, she's being blackmailed, Peach is still convinced that is the reason why. And who could blame him when his parents have fostered an environment so toxic, it has made him ashamed of himself and hide who he is for years. Of course he thinks his bisexuality is the problem when he's so insecure about it himself. That scene also rang very true to me as well, especially because once again it's not uncommon to have a bisexual person be dating someone who does not believe in their sexuality. So it's not surprising that Peach, who was so insecure about it already, jumped to that conclusion as well. Because accepting your parents or your friends' bisexuality can be easier than accepting your partner's sexuality. Because you might think they're saying they're bisexual until they come out as gay and dump you, which circles back to that initial tech comment that started this whole video. It also reminds me of that What Would You Do Bisexual episode, which is an American TV show where actors reenact different scenes to see how bystanders react to certain topics. In the bisexual episode, we discover a same-sex couple in which one of them is bi, while the other is gay. And here's what the gay one says about his partner right in front of him.
So is bisexuality even a thing?
Oh, absolutely. According to him, yes. According to me, no. It hurts a lot less on them, and families can handle it a lot better when they use that label of bisexual.
I just don't think bisexuality itself, is real.
Like I said, I don't either.
And what the actual fuck? This is truly the saddest thing I've ever seen. And I genuinely hope this man finds a better partner, because being denied your own sexuality by the one you're trying to build a life with, that shit hurts. And for me, that's what Peach's storyline got right. That need to always justify your sexuality when you're bisexual. You're often just not taken seriously for it because so many people can't comprehend it. Or at least they don't want to. Same as people playing dumb when they say that they don't see Tay being bisexual, despite the show showing time and time again that he is. Robert and conclusion. I'll leave you guys with one last example. Robert Sugden from Emmerdale that I keep referring to. I talked about the classic soap opera trope of a straight man falling in love with a man, starting an affair, and yup, Robert is no exception. When Robert came back to Emmerdale after years of absence and started an affair with Aaron, a lot of people in the fandom, including me, clearly picked up on the fact that he could only be bisexual. One of his major tropes before his departure was his love for Katie, who ends up being his brother's wife, and spoiler, he accidentally kills her. Gotta love soap operas, am I right? So writing Robert to be gay after coming back and falling in love with Aaron would be denying one of his major life storylines. So obviously most people who watched the show thought of him as bi from the get-go. But what Emmerdale did was the complete opposite of Greg from Hollyoaks, who I will die on that hill was bisexual. And Emmerdale actually affirmed Robert as a bisexual man. Once his affair with Aaron is revealed, everyone has fun calling Robert gay, including his ex-wife Chrissy, whom he cheated on, his brother Andy, whose wife he killed, and Aaron, his future husband and the guy he had an affair with.
Boss, it's gonna happen. You're gay.
And Robert denies it every time.
Since when were you gay?
I'm not gay.
And it's shown as him being deeply closeted, which in all fairness he definitely is. But a little while after that initial affair reveal, after some absolutely insane shenanigans that I definitely can get into today, after Aaron and Robert have finally become an official couple, we have one of the greatest episodes in soap opera history in my opinion, though I might be biased. And I had the chance to watch it live as it aired. Basically it was a full week of episodes that created a whole new storyline, was filmed on different cameras, and was just almost its own series on its own. And after an argument in the car between Robert and Aaron about Robert's sexuality, Robert finally admits that he is bisexual.
People are always going to think that. Well, because I'm bi. I'm bisexual, okay? I like both. It doesn't mean that I'm going to cheat.
Well, I can't be both.
Obviously.
It's just confusing.
No, it's really not.
And when I tell you that this is in my top 10 of the happiest moments in front of a TV show, I really mean it. That whole special week was just so insanely good, and for me truly the last great Robert and Aaron storyline, as it led to Robert proposing to Aaron. From then on though, Robert has a few moments of correcting people about his sexuality, and every single time it felt so genuinely cathartic to me. How didn't I know I was bisexual earlier, you ask me? Well, I'm wondering the same thing, to be honest. But anyways, to have a character who, yes, was always so clearly bisexual, actually get to proclaim it and defend his sexuality was really fucking important. For once, his sexuality isn't left to imagination. And Robert didn't allow people to walk all over him with their bias and biphobia. But once again, the fact that he needed to justify himself in the first place is so telling of what bisexual people often have to go through. Just like bisexual had to fight to be included in the first Pride parades and in the LGBTQ+ community as a whole, we still have to fight today to be seen as valid and not as confused people who turn out gay or straight in the end anyway. We are not an in-between. We are whole. And I really wanted to talk about this topic because I now know that it's what has kept me from accepting myself in the first place. Growing up and being told that bisexuals were seen as confused and promiscuous cheaters, that they're not accepted by straight or gay people. That shit influenced me for sure. It made me believe that as long as I wasn't in a full-blown relationship with a woman, I couldn't possibly be bisexual. It probably didn't seem like it was worth the struggle. So it's important to pay attention to your words when you comment things. You can relate to certain things about a character that might make you think that he's of a certain sexuality, but at the end of the day, most characters are meant to be read a certain way, and Tay is one of them. As for Peach and Robert, who both fought for their identity to be recognized and accepted despite being closeted themselves, they not only show that bi erasure is so common from everyone, but they also reassure me that just like these fictional characters, as long as there is bi erasure, there will be as equally prepared bi people to counter it. I wish we didn't have to fight in the first place, but if we really have to, I know we can do it. Because the world isn't black and white. It comes in all shades of the rainbow. Hope you enjoyed this video, I'll see you next time, and have a great day.